you here. It feels like it's so early in the morning. I haven't finished my morning coffee yet, so if I'm sounding a little bit delayed, bear with me. So welcome everyone. I'm sure that many more students will join as the session progresses. And as mentioned in the communication to you during the week, this morning, we're going to continue talking about the minutes, and then we'll also discuss the report. However, your questions are what drives this discussion, very much like we did yesterday. I'm also pleased that so many of you participated in the session yesterday, and more specifically participated by asking those questions. And one of the things that I came away from yesterday's session was the nature of the questions. Some of the questions was around this portfolio and what is this portfolio, and so I thought, let me just start off this morning by just explaining to you what the portfolio is and why it's called a portfolio exam. It's called a portfolio exam because you are preparing a portfolio of evidence. The POE stands for Portfolio of Evidence. And I'm also very pleased to let you know that we have today Dr. Shandu, who is here with us this morning. She's sitting in this morning just to be part of the session today. And I'm very, very grateful that I was sent the presentation yesterday. And so I'm going to be sharing that presentation. I think it was you, Tuli, who did the recording, or rather who did the session at Opus 10 yesterday.
Yes, hi, Lynn. It was me. I did the presentation. Hi, everyone.
So yeah, thank you. So from your voice, I can also hear that it was you who did the podcasts. And yesterday I played one of the podcasts for the students in the session, and so now they can put a name to the voice, and I see the picture also. So welcome to the session today, and we're very grateful for your taking the time on a Saturday morning, particularly to be here with us. Thanks. So, students, it's important that you've come to the session today with those questions. Remember, these sessions are about what are those things that are making you anxious, all right? We beyond the point of how do I write a report, what is the report all about? That's the work you would have done throughout the semester, going through your study guide, going through your tutorials, doing your assignments, looking at your tutorial letters. Yesterday, I spent time showing you where to find all of that information. So today is about getting rid of all those things that are still bothering you, the little niggly things that you're unsure of. It doesn't matter if you've asked the question already. It's okay. Sometimes we need to ask these questions more than once. That's the purpose of these sessions. Secondly, your questions can also come from the feedback you got from your assignments, if you've received both your assignments back. But if you've only gotten assignment 1 back, your questions can come from that one assignment only. If there's something in the feedback you didn't understand, if there's some uncertainty, if there's the nature of yesterday's questions was broad. It went, from minutes to reports to workplace correspondence to where to find resources on my UNISA, but that's okay. This session is for you, and you drive the way the session goes. I have an idea in my head of what it is we could do. And ultimately, we do cover those things that I would like to address. So I think what we'll do is let's open up, and as always, you know that you can ask a question at any time. I'm really not sure if you're familiar with the raising of your hand. I'm going to share my screen very quickly, just so that you can see where to find it. If you're on your cell phone, Okay, so I'm sharing my screen with you, and you'll see on this bar, if you're using a computer, you'll see on this bar here, there is a raise your hand icon. So if you are wanting to ask a question, click on the icon, and next to your name, a hand will appear, and I will know that you want to ask a question. Okay. So once your question has been answered, you can then click on it again, and then your hand will be taken down. So that's just a nice quick tool for you to learn about Teams as to how you can get my attention. Unless, of course, there's always, unmute your microphone and ask the question, or you can ask the question here in the chat box. Okay, so who wants to kick off with the questions? Anything that came to you overnight? Good morning to the people who just joined. So if you've just joined the session, good morning. We're starting off today's session with questions, your anxieties, the things that are troubling you, the things that are worrying you about the portfolio exam that you will be busy with starting on Monday. Unmute your microphone to ask the question, raise your hand using the raising hand tool, or post your question in the chat box. All right. As I mentioned earlier, post your questions in the chat box. If any question comes to mind, maybe your morning coffee, like mine, is still waiting to kick in. And so we'll carry on. And I just again like to thank Dr. Shandu for sending us the presentation of yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through aspects of that, and we'll see how we go, and maybe that will prompt some questions. Apologies for this. I was looking at this early this morning, so okay, so there we go. This was the presentation that Dr. Shandu used yesterday. Dr. Shandu, please, if you want to add anything, I'm not quite sure how I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you don't mind, you please feel free to add, to comment. set me right, because you, after all, are the academic year, and you know exactly what the portfolio of evidence needs to deal with, or, you know, am I saying doing the right thing, giving the right advice, etc. So the presentation, as you can see, I'm not going to read. You can all read. This is what it covers: the format, the dates, the contents, and the individual sections. So as you all know, on the 8th of June, the questions will be released. And I like the fact that the full form of the POE, portfolio of evidence, is used in this, because it makes it very clear to you what the portfolio is. It's a document that you're going to in which you're going to put evidence, gather evidence through the form of your questions, and then you're going to submit that as your portfolio. Closing date is on the 15th, and as I mentioned yesterday, also submit before the closing date to avoid that congestion. It's like getting up a few minutes late, and you miss the time you've got to leave in order to get onto the freeway to avoid the congestion on the freeway. And so you're stuck in traffic and you can't move because there's just so much traffic on the freeway. It's the same idea. If you wait till the last minute to submit your assignment, you're going to experience that congestion, and you may have problems uploading your assignment. No extensions, because this is an exam. So the format, again, as we mentioned yesterday, in PDF, typed, converted to PDF. So for those of you wanting to know font size, there you've got some information. It's 12, 1.5, double line or double line spacing, and leave enough room on the margins for the markers' comments. If you're handwriting, that's also fine, as long as you then still scan and upload a scanned PDF document. I showed you where to find the document yesterday, how to find, what to do, how to scan a handwritten portfolio of evidence. It's really important that you familiarize yourself with the technology, how to use it. And yesterday, I advised you to spend yesterday, the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, just getting used to how to use the technology, because you don't want to be fiddling with it and allowing that fiddling to let the panic kick in. So you're going to be receiving a checklist. The checklist, I'm assuming, will include a list of items that must be included in your portfolio of evidence that you're going to upload. I'm sure it will include your answers and your declaration. You will be doing a reflection, editing, and proofreading, minutes, and an investigative report. Now, when I look at this, the only thing that's different from your assignments is going to be the reflection question. And I'll talk about a little bit about what reflective writing is all about later on at the end, because I want to get to the minutes and the investigative report and deal with your comments and your questions on that. Or rather, more your questions and your concerns around that. In your individual sections, you're going to have to show evidence in your writing. You have to demonstrate evidence that you are able to write using business English, that you have completed the reflection, that you have done the editing and proofreading exercise, that you have completed the minutes, that you have written an investigative report. I'm assuming also that you will only, like assignment 1, for the minutes question, you will only need to do a section of the minutes. And if you read the tutorial letter carefully, even if you, no, it's tutorial letter for assignment 1. If you read that tutorial letter very carefully, you'll see that many students, and you may or may not be one of them, you wrote the full version of the minutes, was not required. One of the elements of this module is assessing your following instructions. Following instructions, it's a crucial task for you to fulfill for any exam, for any assignment, particularly at UNISA. because it is a distance learning university. So you must be able to follow instructions, and you demonstrate that ability to fulfill the task when you follow the instructions. So for some of you, if you've been in my former sessions, I used something very similar where I went through the differences between informal and formal language. And I encourage you to go back to the recording of that session where we covered this, where we spoke about the accurate grammar, no contractions, using a neutral tone, etc. Furthermore, what you could also do is go back and listen to the podcast that Dr. Shandu recorded, that we listened to yesterday. If you listen to the podcast and you have this slide in front of you, then it'll make a lot more. It'll make a lot more sense. You're going to be using more than one sense to learn and take in information. You're going to be listening. You're going to be looking at something, and hopefully you're even making notes. And so it will start to make sense for you. I hope that you took my advice to heart yesterday of creating a little folder on your computer in which you're going to download or upload all of the resources that you're going to need for this portfolio exam. I have uploaded this presentation into the files in this Teams channel, and at the end of the presentation I'll show you where to find it, for those of you who are not familiar yet where to find the documents that I've uploaded there. So again, follow instructions. This is for the reflection question. Follow the instructions, use your own experiences, express your own opinions, write grammatically correct sentences, use formal English. So the way in which you write your report, the way in which you write your minutes, the way in which you're going to do the editing exercise, all of those features of language, all of those elements that you need to combine in order to achieve clarity, which is the overall function or feature of business English. If you go back to study unit 1, that's what that whole study unit deals with. It's how do I achieve clarity in my writing? And it talks about how you achieve it, making sure that your writing is clear, concise, complete, appropriate, and I forget the last one, but it will come to me later. You can go back and have a look at it. All right, so reflective writing, it's where we reflect, where we look back on an experience of something that occurred in our lives, an event that occurred in our lives. And I don't know what the reflection is what the event would be, but in an academic environment, I can imagine that it would be probably your experience of the module, maybe your experience of writing a report, your experience of being a student at a distance learning university. I don't know, but be prepared for some kind of question that is related to your experience as a student. All right, so use those experiences. You don't need to go to the internet. You don't need to do any research for this. You have the knowledge within you. Where does the knowledge come from? Your own awareness, your own experiences. Write about what was real for you. But when we reflect, reflective writing is not only about what happened, where we describe what happened, where we talk about the event itself and our feelings, what we did. We also talk about what we learned. Okay? Now, again, I don't know what's coming. Sorry, excuse me. I need to take a sip of water. I'm sorry, apologize for that. Okay, so I don't know what the nature of the question is. All I can offer you is follow the instructions. I'm giving you a little bit more assistance as to the way in which you use your experiences when you're writing, the way in which you use your own opinions in response to the instructions. Hello?
Hi, do you want to take a second to get a breather? Then I can just talk a little bit about the reflection.
Okay, that would be great. Thank
So
you.
you can have a sip of water and just breathe.
Thanks so much.
Sure. Okay. So everyone, I'm really glad that that Lynn is talking about reflection, because when we reflect, we look back at our experiences, and then sometimes we look at how our experiences can be applied for the present and the future. So I just need to get you to be aware of the tenses that you will be using as you write this, because we will mark for language. So we will mark your expression. How do you express yourself? Your language. So we will mark for your sentences, which have to be grammatically correct. We will be marking for spelling, but then we will also be marking for organization of ideas. So it will not just be spelling and correct word, but it will also be your organization of ideas. Do you have your ideas in paragraphs, for example? And this is where we have faced a bit of angst from our students. You know, they write in bullet points and say, but I did present points. Why are you failing me? Well, if you write in bullet points, we just have ideas, but we also need ideas plus expression of those ideas, right? So we are not just looking at ideas in bullet points, but your expression of your ideas, your articulation of those ideas. So we need complete sentences. We need to see how your ideas are connected in paragraphs. So just beware that you are not just thinking about your experiences, but also how you tell us about those experiences. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So just to pick up on that point of writing in paragraphs. So an idea would be, you know, that a paragraph, one main idea, right? So if you are required to write about the event, then that would be one main idea. Paragraph, you discuss or you describe what the event is. Then in a second paragraph, based on the instructions, in a second paragraph, you could write about how you felt, what you learned, all that kind of thing, what it meant, etc. And then in the third paragraph, or in a separate paragraph, you would write about how you would use that learning going forward, for example. So this is how you break up your ideas into separate paragraphs. So thanks for that input. I appreciate that. So now you also know that you're needing to write a series of paragraphs for this reflection. So I'd like to leave you with the idea is follow the instructions. The reflective writing is about your personal experience. You writing about your own opinions. Make sure that your sentences are grammatically correct. Grammatically correct refers to that they are complete sentences, that your tenses are appropriate. So when you're writing about what took place in the past, make sure that that sentence is written in the past. If you're writing about how you're going to change things, do things differently, how you're going to apply your learning in future, make sure that those sentences are written in the future tense. Are there any questions at this point?
Hi, can I ask something?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
What does it mean if a sentence is highlighted and it says revise?
So, thanks for the question, Lynette. It means you need to change it. You need to rewrite it. There's something either, was there nothing else? Was it just saying revise?
It just said revise. It was just highlighted and said revise. Yes, just that.
Okay, can you read the sentence out for me, please?
To be able to fulfill our dream to bring communities together, like said above, and celebrate this wonderful National Heritage Day, we would like to humbly request any donation you can spare for this function.
Okay. Firstly, it's a long sentence. Shandu, you want to, sorry, Tuli, you want to come in here?
Yes, sure. Okay, so okay, let's do the sentence first, and then I'll explain why you only have revise. Okay, so the sentence one, it's very long. So I would, if I had to revise it, I would break it up maybe into 2 sentences or even 3. Secondly, the other issue is that it's the use of the first person. I hear a lot of the first person we, whereas the focus should be on the company. Okay, so because with business writing, we try to remove the self, we try to remove the first person. So then we would say the company, or we would say the organization would like to. And then thirdly, there's a bit of a personal emotive language there. We would like to humbly, so on, so on. So we try to be neutral in business writing. We are neutral and we are factual. So we try to avoid words like unfortunately, words like humbly, words like you try to stick to the facts. There was another thing that I picked up, but then basically those are the main things. And the reason we only have revise, I'm not sure if I should share this, but I will anyway. So 1504 has 21,000 students registered. 1. 2, we had technical issues with our JRouter, our marking system. So then that gave us a short time to mark 21,000 assignments. And then remember, because of the coronavirus and everything, our submission deadlines were postponed. With those factors, we found ourselves with very limited time to mark all these assignments. So we decided that we will comment, of course, there are comments there, but then for other things, because it takes longer to say, revise this sentence, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. So we'll just highlight and say revise. It brings your attention to the issue, and then we trust that you have your study guide, you have your other materials to go to and say, what do they mean by that I have to revise? So we apologize for that, but the corona thing just threw us off in so many ways. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tuli.
Wow.
We really appreciate that.
Yes, that is of a lot of help. It really helped me now. I can understand why it says revise, and I can understand now the mistakes that I've made. Yeah, thank you very much.
Excellent. All right, so any other questions on the reflective writing section? So Tokozile's asked the question about that question being some kind of essay. And I've replied yes. But bear in mind, Tokozile and everyone else, that respond to the question. All right? When you get this document, when you have that question paper in front of you, you should be reading and focusing on what is in front of you, not necessarily what Lynn said. So respond to the words and the instructions before you on Monday. It will tell you exactly what needs to be done. Any other questions that you have on what we've covered thus far?
Sorry, can I ask one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
With COVID-19, I mean, it affects everybody. Everybody is affected in some other way. And how do you stay neutral in a situation like today? How do you not say that you feel and you understand that that it have an impact on a lot of people, but you need to stay neutral in your business language?
Okay, can I answer that one?
Go ahead.
So in writing, in language, in what we call languaging, when we use language, we rely on what we call genre. So that means that different types of writing contexts, you know. So when we write a discursive essay, for example, we could be allowed to throw in our opinions and views and sometimes our emotions. When we write, because we are discussing an issue like the impact of the coronavirus on higher education, and then we have a narrative writing where we tell a story. You tell your own story as a UNISA student. You describe a day in the life of a UNISA student, and emotions are involved there. You could write about your emotions. But with business English, I know that the world is not devoid of emotions. That would just be amiss to say that we do not have emotions. But with business English, the focus is not on the person, like I mentioned earlier. The focus is on the document. The focus is on decisions that need to be taken. The focus is on facts that should be considered in those decisions. Let's say, for example, you were conducting an investigation into the possibility of providing PPEs to UNISA students, okay? That is an emotional topic. We want to be protected. We want to come on campus and we want free masks and we want all these things. It is emotional. But if you had to conduct that research or that investigation, your focus is not necessarily on how you feel about the investigation, but the focus is on should we or should we not provide PPEs, right? So then your procedures would be interviewing students to garner their opinions, but you are not involved as the researcher. It's the research, it's the document, it's the students, it's what they said. If they express their fears, then that's what you say. Say the students expressed their fears. It's not your fears, but it's the students' fears. Do you see the difference? So you cannot say in your findings, I was saddened to note that students are afraid, okay? But you would say the students expressed their fears. The students noted that. So you focus on the document, you focus on the people you interviewed. And when we saw that with our, as we continue marking reports, we notice that the self, the writer, tends to come in much more than the findings, what the people said, you know. And then in your conclusions, again, you express your opinions, but not as a person, based on the findings. For example, you could say something like personal protective, I can't remember what they're called in full, are needed for UNISA students for health reasons, okay? It's not you, it's the document, it's the investigation. And then with the recommendation, it's not your, it's recommendations. focusing on the investigation, focusing on what should be done. So you try in business writing to remove the self and focus on the organization, on the work at hand, because you never know where your report will end. You want people to make decisions, not emotions, but on situation, the document, and your research. I think that's clear. Thanks.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Lusanda, you have your hand up. Go ahead with your question. Hello, Lusanda. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead, Lusanda. It seems like Lusanda is having a connection problem. Lusanda, if you're struggling to connect, because I can see that your microphone's going on and off, type your question in the chat box. I've shared the my screen so everybody can see your question. Is there anyone else who has a question at this point?
Yes, Lynn. I actually wanted to ask specifically on the terms of reference.
Yes.
I noted when I was listening to the podcast and when I was listening to the other recorded sessions, specifically to the terms of reference in the workbook or in the the workbook, it says that a recommendation is to be submitted, but you were saying in the podcast you were saying that a recommendation was to be on this date. I'm just a bit confused. Is it or is it was?
Okay, so I'm going to throw the question back at you. What do you think? Think about the timelines, Madeline, with regards to when this report is going to be read.
Yeah, no, I honestly, after listening to all the recordings, it should be was.
Or what you could do is say, as on page 51, it says a recommendation or recommendations to be submitted. And then you won't have to worry about is it was, or is it is, or is it are. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. Lusanda, you still have a question there? I can see you. All right, anybody else with questions? And at this point, it's fine. We can ask any question. It doesn't have to only be on the reflective writing, but go ahead, ask any questions, please. I see there was a question from Caitlin asking, has the presentation been added to the additional resources? Yes, Caitlin, I uploaded it this morning, so you will find it under files. I'll just show you now. I am sharing my screen with you, and I'll just show you where to find it. You'll find it in the Teams channel. If you go to files here, you'll see I created a folder called exam preparation. And there's the presentation. So you have access to it.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, please keep your questions coming. Unmute your mic, post your questions in the chat box. If you've just joined, I see some more people have joined. Welcome. And so let's go back then to the presentation. All right, so the edit, proofread, and revise section of the exam. If you have a look at those bullet points, it says revise, edit, proofread. All of this appears in your study guide. In your workbook, you have exercises that deal with all of these elements of writing. So under revision, it says unnecessary details, unnecessary and irrelevant information, organizing your ideas according to the audience and the purpose. Bearing in mind that when we create a document or when we write anything at work, in the business environment, what is the purpose of this document? We don't just write because we feel like it. We're writing for a specific purpose. We are writing to provide information. We are responding to a request. We are inquiring about something. We are apologizing for something. We are writing to complain. We wanting to market or promote an event, a product. We are sending information as a brief, you know, informing the staff, informing the team of changes in the processes, in the systems, in the way in which we do things at work. So there's always a reason, and the purpose is going to drive or is going to inform the information that you are going to provide. The information or the content you provide, where do you get that from? You get that from the scenario that has been given to you. If you think about assignment 1, you were given that badly written email. But contained in that badly written email, there were little what I like to call nuggets of information, which you use or could use in order for you to put together content that explained or spoke to the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, and the how of what it was you're wanting to communicate through your email. And the purpose of that email in assignment 1 was we wanted to ask for a financial contribution. We were requesting financial contribution to the organization who was arranging a celebration in the community. That was the purpose. And so when you get to the second aspect of editing, proofreading, and revising, you're looking at the content, and I've just covered that, the 5 WHs. Your structure is very important. Dr. Shandu's mentioned that. Structure refers to not only the format, so is it an email? Have you provided the email addresses, the to, the from, the subject line, the date? Have you said, dear Mr. So-and-so, Ms. So-and-so, Dr. Professor So-and-so, the person to whom you are writing, if it's an email or even a letter, and have you ended it appropriately? Kind regards, if it's an email. If it's a letter, it's going to be yours faithfully or yours sincerely, depending on how you started off. But your structure also deals with the content. Have you, and more particularly, it deals with have you written in paragraph form. Now, your study guide provides you with a clear outline of what each paragraph needs to include. So if you look at page 5 and page 6 at those bullet points there, in your first paragraph, you say why you're writing. So it seems a little bit awkward, but if in business writing, we never write for ourselves. We're always writing for the person who is reading it. And today in business, time is money. People don't have lots of time to read long-winded details. We get to the point, and that's what's being concise is all about. So when you are writing an email, and I'm just going to look for what I used the last time to show you the format of an email, and I'm showing you this.
Hi, Lynn.
Yes.
As you search for the email, can I give you an example of
Sure.
of an email subject and introductory paragraph? So I
Yes,
told
sure.
you we have about 21,000 students for 1504.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another module where I have about 16,000 students, and another module where I have about, I think, 900 students, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get an email from a student, and the subject line is, please help.
Yes.
And then the introductory paragraph is, I have a problem. I live in rural areas and I don't have the internet. So the whole first paragraph is the struggles that the student faces.
Yes.
And I still don't know what I need to help the student with. Right? So in my inbox, I have about, each day I get about 300 emails from students, and I'm itching, I'm eager. I need to help this one so that I'll get on to the other one. So, but then if in the subject line I had the module code and I had a bit of information of the help that is required, and in the first paragraph, if I had the reason for the email, why are you writing? Then I would quickly help the student, because then right at the end, I find out that the student wants to change her or his registration. And I think, goodness, I can't even help the student with this. This is an administrative query. And then I have to write back and say, this is an administrative query. I'm not able to help. Contact this person. But if the person had given me that indication in the subject line or in the first paragraph, then it would save so much time. It's just an example, a real life practical example.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks, Tuli. So there you've heard the importance of making sure that firstly, your subject line addresses the issue, states succinctly. Succinctly means as short as possible, as to the point, as clear as possible, what the content of the email is all about. So, for example, it would be request to change modules. So now the lecturer knows exactly. I once had an email where the student had put the whole email in the subject line instead of typing it in the body of the email. So what I did here was when we were looking at assignments and we were doing sessions to help you with assignments, I then took what appears in study unit 1, and because some student you were struggling with the layout of your email answer, this is what I shared with you, and you'll find this in the files in the team session. But here, what I want to get to is how you would break up your email into paragraphs. So in paragraph 1, you would say why you are writing. In paragraph 2, you will describe the background, the context for your request, your apology, your complaint, your brief of information, etc. In paragraph 3, you're going to give accurate information to motivate whatever you spoke about earlier in the previous 2 paragraphs. And paragraph 4 is usually a short paragraph where you suggest the response you need from the reader. Remember, if you are requesting information, you're not going to dictate. You're not going to instruct. You are going to request, because if you are going to say something like get back to me ASAP, that's firstly inappropriate. It is impolite. It is demanding in tone. You would rather say, please, would you respond to my request so that we are able to plan for the celebratory event appropriately. We look a simple sentence like that, where you're asking for the response from the reader. So this is just to show you some way in which you're going to lay out your answer. But you can also find that in your tutorial letter. So if we go to your tutorial letter and we see the sample answer there, Lusanda, I have seen your question. We'll come back to it in a minute. Okay, so if we break this down into its structure, okay, you'll see in this paragraph here, we are saying why we are writing. The committee requests financial support from your company. In this paragraph here, what we're doing is we are describing the background. I just want to give you a visual of what because sometimes I've discovered that students struggle with the visual layout of a paragraph. So in the second paragraph, we're describing the background. In the third paragraph, we are motivating. So we're explaining what the money is going to be used for. And then finally, we are suggesting the response that you need from the reader. Okay. So do you have any questions around this? Bearing in mind that you're not sure what, if it's an email, a memo, or a letter that you're going to be asked to edit. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Lynn. When I got feedback.
Hello, Madeline.
Yes, sorry. When I got feedback with the email,
Yes.
after it's been marked, I try to be concise in the email, but I got a remark that said that I didn't give enough motivation for the funding. So in business terms, can you maybe give an example of how you would ask somebody to, fund a specific event? I found it difficult to express, why they would want to even be part of it.
Okay, so if you read the scenario carefully that you were given, if we go back to the scenario here, if you read, this is very badly written email that you had to do, if you read it carefully, this is the nuggets I was talking about, Madeline. In that badly written document, there were little nuggets that you could have used as motivation. Okay, so for example, one of the motivating factors you could have referred to for the financial contribution from the companies would be that they would advertisement, the posters being put up. We will put your name all over the place. Now I'm using the version that's being written here, but it's more it's conversational. You would then have to convert that idea into business English. So the many ideas were here, because your question is asking what motivating factors, how do I convince them? You were given some information here, the benefits, all right? In fact, there were more benefits here. It says we will give you plates of food. It was another motivating factor. So it was up to you to take what was given to you. And this is why it's so important for you to read what is given to you. Because in what is given to you are those little nuggets of gold. You, as the investigative reader, need to uncover those little nuggets in the scenarios presented to you. I hope that helps you, Madeline.
Yes, thank you. I used those, but for some reason I still got there's not enough motivation. I really didn't understand like what I was supposed to, because I said, we will put your names out on, on posters, and everyone will see that you are, funding the event and all of those things. But I'm not sure if I maybe the
Okay.
way I worded it, or I'm not sure what I did wrong.
Okay. So if we look at the sample answer, this is where your creativity and your invention of information and your general knowledge can be used. So if you look at this, this paragraph here in the sample answer, it says, by funding the event, your company will benefit in that you will get an opportunity to advertise by putting your banners on stage and at the entrances into the stadium. So it's maybe there were details around the way in which the promotion of the contributors or the funders or the sponsors, companies, maybe you were lacking on the details there. If you look at the sample answer, it gives details as to how they were going to be, the company was going to be advertised, the banners on the stage and where those banners were placed. You will receive mention across all social media platforms. Do you see there's more detail? Certificates of sponsorship will be used that you can use towards the receiver of revenue for tax purposes. The main benefit will be the gratification of taking part in this noble occasion, which will make an impact on the community. So it's possible that maybe, Madeline, there wasn't enough detail around the motivating factors. Okay. All right. So
may I come in again, Lynn?
Certainly.
So I think the difficulty with business writing, maybe even academic writing in general, is the balance between conciseness and providing adequate details. And this is an issue even with our postgraduate students, even at doctoral level. Striking that balance between being concise on the one hand and also providing the required sufficient details. I'll give you an example. To say we will put up banners of your company, that lacks detail because we do not know where the banners will be put up, right? Of course, the information is there. We will put up banners, but where? So that's an additional detail that would work. If I had a company and someone says they will put up banners only inside the church or something, or the hall, then I would think, yeah, no, I don't want to participate, because I'd rather have my banners at the entrance or at the gate, right? So that is a deciding factor, not that banners are there, but where. And things like you will get we will advertise your company, full stop. That is a detail, but where? Social media, radio station, TV, those kinds of things. So even though there are details, you just have to give us that additional information that will help us to make a decision. And so we just have to work on it. It's a skill that is developed over time, but it's most important with business writing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tuli. All right, Lusanda, let's answer your question. You're saying, I'd like to know, how does it remain factual when we're required to add our opinions, as we end up having to attach our emotions because we edit information based on our experiences? Yes. Lusanda, I think Dr. Shandu addressed that earlier when she spoke about, in business writing, you focus on the facts at hand. You focus on what is the outcome you want to achieve. So yes, you're going to bring in an opinion, but it is possible to express an opinion without emotion. And it is possible to express one's experiences without emotion, particularly in writing, because of our word choice. And so that comes with practice. It is a difficult task to achieve, but it's something that you will practice and that you will learn and that you will acquire. But I hear your dilemma, and I think Dr. Shandu addressed it just now also with the previous question, where we have to make sure that for this module, yes, you are expressing your personal ideas based on your experiences, having to write this email or this memo or this letter without bringing emotions in it, because you're basing everything that you're writing on your personal experience. But despite the fact that it's personal experience, you must remember your context is business writing. And within business, because we are wanting to ensure that business can make decisions based on information, factual information at hand, that's why our writing has to be neutral and objective without emotion attached to it. I hope that helps. Hi there, go ahead, Tuli.
Okay, here's a practical example. In one of the social platforms, someone said these UNISA lecturers are useless and they are lazy bums. True story.
Okay.
So, Lusanda, can you feel the emotions there? You can literally feel the emotions. You can feel the anger. You can feel the hatred. You can feel the resentment, right? It's all there. Now compare that if we had to write an email to Professor Makanya complaining about these useless, lazy bum UNISA lecturers. Now, if we wanted to put it in a more factual, right? Because we want facts, and in a more neutral. We're not saying you are neutral in this situation because you are not, but the document itself has to be factual and neutral. So you would say something like, the lecturers for ENN1504, right there, you are not that emotional because now you are giving us a specific group of lecturers, because this person said UNISA lecturers, and that is not a fact. Not all UNISA lecturers are lazy bums, right? So the ENN 1504 lecturers did not respond to my emails, okay? And then you say you sent an email on such and such a date, it was not responded to, you followed up with another email, there was no response until you emailed the COD. Can you see the difference? One is they are all useless, they are lazy bums. The one is they did not help me, and that is a fact. You did not receive the responses, you did not receive the help, you did not receive anything from. So can you see the difference now? We are not saying stop being emotional. We are saying articulate facts, express your disagreement, express your unhappiness, but focus on being factual, and the document itself has to detail the facts, not that you have to stop being emotional, because I think that's where the issue is. You cannot stop being emotional. You're a human being, but it's in the way you articulate your issue. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Tuli. Wayne, I see your comment. So I'm not sure. Maybe you want to just explain what you mean. You talk about made up facts, facts or half facts. I'm not understanding the question. Lusanda, go ahead. Lusanda, I can see you're trying to connect. And if I'm not hearing you, so make use of the chat box just to post your question again if you're struggling from your side.
Miss Lynn,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's kind of hard to explain, but if
Okay.
we go back to the email where everything is how can I say, it's in Afrikaans is de mekaar.
Okay. Yeah.
You have to actually put it in fact forms, everything that you want. But not everything is going to be given to you. Some of it that they add, but you also have to add it in fact form. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have an idea of what you're meaning. You're referring to Wayne. You're referring to the draft that's given to you, and then it's not structured. It's not in paragraphs. The information is not. It's not. It doesn't flow logically. And
They don't give you all of the information.
Well, that's part of the exercise. Excuse me.
You have to construct your detailed fact form or facts from that draft.
Yes, exactly. And so that is why, Wayne, when we were looking at assignment preparation, I suggested that you need to write it as if you were writing it from scratch. Because what was given to you, it would have taken you forever to fix every single sentence, and then it still would not have met all of the requirements. With if you're thinking about format of an email, making sure that it's concise, it's clear, it's coherent, it's structured, it would not have met all of those requirements. So I hope that's made it clearer for you.
Yes,
Robin,
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Robin, you have a question, go ahead.
Hello, Lynn. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, Robin.
I just wanted to know, we were advised not to use I, we, and us in business writing, but I noted here in the email, their version of the email, there's quite a few times where they use we in the corrected version of the email. So why is it acceptable there? I don't know if you understand me. Just see on page 5.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen quickly.
Third.
Tuli, if you don't mind answering that question, please.
Yes, Lynn. Okay, so it's not never ever use. It's you try not to use, you steer away from it. But in some context, you want to use the the first person we, but you use it sparingly. Personally, I try never to use it, but the rule is it's not never to use it, it's try to steer away from it. I mentioned earlier that the focus should always be on the document, not the person. That is why I advise that you use the company, the organization, and what else could it be? The project requires this. I'm trying to, sorry, I put my glasses away here. So I'm trying to read.
I'll make.
Lynn, please could
Yes.
you, okay, there we go. Thank you so much. You should see me right now.
Okay, so I think
Let's find it.
Yeah, the section that Robin's referring to is she says the funds we require, and then further on here it says we have also attached. But
this is me close to the computer, right?
Okay, all right. I see you. Yes.
I'm trying to read. Okay, let's find it. Where is it?
There we go. I think what they're referring to there, to the and Robin, is that when they refer to we, it's like, they're referring to like the we the company.
Yes.
Not we the person.
Yes.
Robin. So you know how you get the royal we when the queen speaks, so when they refer to themselves as we.
Yes.
So and so what this we in this instance refers to is we the company. So that is acceptable. It's not referring to we the person, because the writer isn't saying I.
Okay, I understand.
And also,
I understand because it makes sense now. If I look at all the we's I see in the document, it makes sense. It's quite a bit in there.
So it's the company. For example, we could have rephrased that to say, please find attached quotations for your perusal. Okay, it would mean the same thing as we have also attached. Because how would it sound if we had said the company has also attached quotations for your perusal, right? So it wouldn't make sense. Or the organization has attached quotations. So like I said, we're not saying like never use we completely, you shall go to jail, do not pass begin, do not collect money, go straight to jail.
I would have avoided we and I through the whole thing, and I think that would have kind of thrown me off because
yeah.
Yeah, but okay, I'm glad I asked that question, and thank you very much for clarifying that now.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, ladies.
Great. Excellent. Okay, so what about minutes questions? Anybody with questions relating to the minutes? Let's go to, I'll just share my screen again. Let's go to, hello. Sibongile, go ahead.
My question is on the email and the memorandum. I just want to email are different, but I want to make sure if the procedures are the same. Like if I write an email, can I write it as in random, like to write why am I writing this? Can I write it as if I am writing the email? Why am I writing the paper? I'm writing what is the background and stuff like that. Can I write it the same as in the memorandum? The email and are they?
Sibongile, I'm so sorry. It was really difficult to hear your question because the connection was coming and going, and I didn't hear it very clearly. So I'm really struggling to hear your question. So do you mind typing your question in the chat?
Okay.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about that. It would have been great to hear your question, but unfortunately the connection was so patchy. You know, you were coming and going and coming and going, and I'm not hearing everything. So I was inviting you to ask questions about the minutes. Do you have anything about the minutes? Because we've got what? We've got until 12. It's 20 past 11 now, so, and we still want to cover the report. So I'll go back to the presentation. Okay, so I think we've covered the editing section comprehensively. And then once you've covered all of this, make sure that you read your answer carefully again for your spelling, your punctuation, and any typing errors. So minutes, one agenda item. It's so important that you follow the questions carefully. Okay. And I think this is where many people struggle. It's the past tense, the third person, and writing in written in reported speech or indirect speech. And what I always tell myself is how I try to remember tense when we are writing in reported speech. I look at the verbs and then I go one step back. It's like yesterday we had the question with have and had. And so always one step back in time when you are writing in reported speech. And your study guide deals with that really nicely. It gives you all of the examples of tenses and certain words that change, those descriptive words of time. So if it was yesterday, the day after. However, having said that, in minutes, remember minutes is a record of a discussion that might be referred to sometime long after the discussion. And so dates are really, really important, and not only the date of the day and the month, but also the year. Those are little details that you must always include in your minutes and in your report, because documents generated or produced within a company are produced for record keeping. And in the real world, we need to keep records of documents for up to 5 to 7 years. So if auditors arrive and say, we'd like to see the trail, why did you use this service provider and not that service provider? Can you explain to us why? You would have to retrieve all of the documents that are related, that pertain to that decision, including a report, because maybe an investigation took place as to what, do we need this service? Do we need this new air conditioners? Why do we need it? So based on the recommendations, we needed to go and find proposals, or the company put out a tender inviting proposals, and then quotations arrived. And then based on the quotations, we made a decision. And so it's important that we provide the little details like dates in full, in minutes, that we write them, those minutes include the names of the people who made the proposals, who were the seconders, and then the resolutions. The word resolutions is another word for decisions. When you're summarizing the main discussion points, that gives the background to the decision that was made, what led up to that decision being made. But you don't need to include all of the detail. That's why you're merely going to summarize the points and only the pertinent points. So in your minutes assignment, you were given lots of irrelevant information where and we went through examples of the irrelevant information. Because remember, we don't have to provide every example or every point that was mentioned. We're only mentioning or minuting points that are of relevance to the decision ultimately. Okay? If the tasks are being pointed to by the chairperson, like in your example of your assignment, you need to name the person and you need to clearly indicate what the task is. Always writing in the past tense, because by the time the minutes are going to be read, then these events have taken place already. And always present your ideas in complete sentences and paragraphs. And yesterday we had the question about, but I used bullet points because the bullet points were used in the workbook, and my suggestion and my recommendation was to avoid using the bullet points, because when we use bullet points, we are inclined to not use full sentences. And ultimately, in this, one of the areas that you're going to be tested on is your use of language and your construction of sentences. So it's important that you try to, avoid using bullet points in your minutes, rather write full sentences. Bearing in mind that you also need to write using paragraphs. So I'm going to just show you again now the sample. In your tutorial letter. So do you see the paragraphs, the use of paragraphs in order in which the separate sections are presented to us in the form of minutes, okay? So if you recall, your first paragraph sort of sets the scene, and it can be one sentence. I also shared with you, when we were looking at minutes, I shared with you another example where the setting of the scene, or the giving the introduction to the discussion that's being minuted was more than one sentence, but one sentence is adequate. You'll see here, if you read this carefully, this talks here about what Mrs. Nene was reporting on, okay? Then here in the next paragraph, in the third paragraph, we are looking at what Mrs. Sene suggested. The suggestion was further explored by Ms. Barnard. You see the mentioning of names. This is important here the use of abbreviations, and I think this was something that was mentioned in the podcast yesterday. So we can't assume that everybody knows what SGB stands for. We can use the shortened form, but only after we have first used it in full. So the first instance of referring to the SGB, we will put it in full and the shortened version or the abbreviation in brackets. Thereafter, we just use the abbreviated form. So in this third paragraph here is the background, some more discussion, the pertinent points, the relevant points, and here is the decision. It was resolved that members of SGBs would be involved in all selection processes. Okay. And then finally, if you go back to the slide said, relevant details of tasks and responsible persons or person or persons, the secretary was requested to write letters. So I'm hoping that that's very quick, but I'm hoping that this makes sense. Do you have any comments or questions on this? Okay, while we're waiting, Sibongile is there a question? Sibongile? Is it you? Yeah? Yeah? Go ahead.
Like it said that we are not supposed to stay in return. But now I am confused. How are we? Why are we supposed? And Mr. Lane said, but now we are not up to say what each person say in return. I don't know if my question is.
Sibongile, I didn't get the question. Again, your connection is fading in and out.
I do not want to say what each person say in return in the minutes of meeting. But can I also say Ms. Wu said, is it if I say like that?
Sibongile, I'm so sorry, my dear. I really am struggling to hear you because is it possible for you to move to another space where the connection is more is better, because you're breaking up and I can't hear your question. I just heard the last bit where you said, is it better to write it like that? I didn't hear what the actual question was. If you're struggling, Sibongile, type the question and I will get to it. And thanks everyone for letting me know that I wasn't sharing my screen. Did you benefit from that explanation of the structuring of your minutes? You can just put a thumbs up or a question in the chat, please. Hello, are you there? I'm not, I don't hear anybody. I don't see any replies in the... Okay, thank you, Madeline. Thanks. Do you have any questions with regards to the minutes? So the question was, Wayne, what are your questions about the minutes? If any. Go ahead, Tuli.
Thank you, Lynn. Hang on, I just joined with another device, so I'm just going to hang up one.
Okay, all right.
Right? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. So with minutes, I just wanted to reiterate what you said earlier about following instructions. So back in the day, I think about 20 years ago, we had something called Business English 104, and then about 10 years ago, no, make that about 6 years ago, we had the new workplace English. And back then, we used to ask students to write the whole set of minutes, hey, from item 1, item 2, mark the register and everything. And then the feedback that we received was that it takes much, much longer for students to complete the section on minutes. So we started experimenting with asking students to write just one agenda item. And the feedback we received was that, and feedback, I mean feedback from students, feedback from our colleagues at curriculum development and so on, is that we are able to assess a student's ability or skills of writing minutes just by assessing one agenda item. So we don't have to make a student write the full set of minutes to see if the student is able to write minutes. So maybe it helps to understand why you only minute one agenda item. It saves you time, but we are also able to assess your ability. Okay, so please read your instructions. If we say minute one agenda item, then do that, because if you do not follow instructions, then we will have to mark you down, because following instructions is a skill, and it's something, if you don't follow instructions, you will have to lose marks. So I just thought I would emphasize that.
Okay, thank you.
Instructions have to be followed. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tuli. Thank you. All right. Okay, Subengile, I just want to deal with you had two questions, and there was one that was related to the memo, okay. So you're saying, can I add the procedures in the memos? Okay, so what you're meaning there is, you follow the the same way of structuring your email, and you'll do the same thing if you were to write a memo and if you were to write a letter. Okay, the same structure. So paragraph 1 is going to be what's your purpose for writing. Paragraph 2 is going to be the background. Paragraph 3 is going to be your motivation. Paragraph 4 is going to be your what it is you're needing the recipient to do. Okay, so that's the one question. Then there was another question here. Not to say what each person says in return. Yes, okay. So what we mean by that, Sibongile, in the minutes is that the minutes is not your rewriting what everyone said as if in conversation. Because what everybody says in the discussion is not always relevant to the minutes, bearing in mind that minutes is a record of the decisions that are made and a summary of what was discussed in relation to that decision. So a lot of what often happens in meetings is not relevant. So for example, in our meeting here today, this morning, so if we think about, sorry Tuli to do this, but Tuli was talking about how she couldn't find her spectacles. That is not going to be included in the minutes if somebody were to be minuting making minutes of this meeting. Okay, bearing in mind that this is not really a very good example, because what decisions are coming out? What decisions are we making in this meeting? So, Sibongile, I'm hoping that that's going to help you. Yes. So, all suggestions that are relevant to the decision, yes, those suggestions you must include. All right. Fundikaya, your questions on a report. I would like to know in the terms of reference when they ask who commissioned whom, do you invent information for the task? Yes. If the information is not provided to you, if it's not given in the instruction or in the scenario or the background, then you invent that information. The reason we do this is so that we know who the investigator is. So if you think about any investigation happening now, remember I've used this example before, the Zondo Commission, although at the moment, you know, we've all forgotten about the Zondo Commission because we're all about COVID-19 at the moment. But any investigation is commissioned by someone. In other words, that investigation is authorized by someone, and someone is authorized to investigate. So both names need to be included. The second question is, I would like to know whether there's any limits on procedure you must use to conduct an investigation. Okay, so the limitations there are two aspects here. It is suggested that you have a minimum of 4 procedures. Okay, so a minimum of 4. When you're saying by how many can I use? Of course, you can use as many as you like. However, follow the instructions that you face on Monday, because your report in your assignment, it said that your report should not exceed 3 pages in length. So that's a limitation. So if you're going to have 7 procedures, there's a strong possibility that your report will not meet the requirements of not 3 pages in length. So be cautious. So my suggestion is 4 minimum, and keep to 4. Don't go too many, because then your report is going to be too long. And and then you run into possible problems with making sure that every procedure has a finding and that your conclusions flow logically from those procedures and those findings, and the same then for your recommendations. So be careful that you don't go to town, that you don't have too many procedures, but a minimum of 4. I hope that helps you, Fundikaya. Please keep your questions coming, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go back to the report. In the presentation. Okay, so analyze the question. In other words, spend time reading the instructions and the background, the scenario. I imagine it's going to be laid out in a similar way to your assignment, where on page 22 in your tutorial letter, you are given the background, and it'll be 1 or 2 paragraphs, maybe even a little bit more, telling you about the company, what the problem is. Remember, an investigative report is wanting to come up with recommendations to address a problem, an issue in the company. All right. You will be provided with information about the problem that needs to be investigated. You will be given names, or maybe one name. If one name is only provided, remember you need to come up with whatever details are missing, months, dates. So in your assignment, you weren't given dates of when the report was commissioned. So that needs to go into your terms of reference. And by when. The second date is equally important in your terms of reference. Then if you look at page 22, it tells you which headings to use, and then your guidelines. Your guidelines may be similar, maybe 1 or 2 of those guidelines won't be there, but bear in mind that you still have access to your resources. Okay, so this portfolio of evidence that you are putting together to demonstrate your ability to write for business purposes, it's like an open book exam. You have access to your study guide, you have access to your tutorial letters. Use that there. Use your workbook for the examples. Use the feedback that you've been given as far as possible. So your procedures, let's go to the... So your title deals with the essence of your report. So things that you must have answered is, what is this report about? Where is it? Where is the problem? What is the problem? Where is the problem located? What is the purpose of this report? So if you were to look at your tutorial letter or at any of the examples in your study guide, your title is always going to start with a report on an investigation into. And if you look very carefully at your background, part of that title is going to be in your background. So that requires careful word for word reading of the background. A lot of the information is there. Information that you need to go to the terms of reference. It is who commissioned whom. the name of the person, the designation of that person, where and when, what is the purpose of the report. So your terms of reference incorporates the title of your report. And of course, the submission date. Look at the examples in your study guide. Your procedures, important that you have a minimum of 4 procedures. These are the actions that you took. What did you do in order to uncover, to gather information, to inform the investigation? They must be written in the past tense and they must be written in the passive voice. So let me go to tutorial letter 2. Tuli, if you don't mind, while I find tutorial letter 2, if you don't mind just adding to what was said, or add to if there's anything else that I've missed there.
Okay. I think what is important is when we mark the title. Okay, before I get to that, I said yesterday in our live stream, the report, the investigative. Sorry. So I said this is where you should collect as many points as possible, because the investigative report can be the easiest document to write. I know that students say this is the most difficult, but it is the easiest. As Lynn has explained, you get your terms of reference from the background. You get your title from the background. It is so structured. If you follow the structure, then you will get marks. This is where you will get most of your marks. The title, we tell you in the study guide, it has to be written in capital letters. If it's not written in capital letters, you lose marks. So if you just read the study guide and apply what we teach you there, listen to the podcast that we put together, then you will do just fine. The title captures the essence of the report and it's written in capital letters. Secondly, your terms of reference. This is the background to your report. This is the thing that helps us to read the report with understanding. And the 2 names are very important, because once we know who commissioned the report and once we know who was commissioned, then it adds credibility to your report, right? Lynn made the example of the Zondo Commission. Imagine if in the background, in the terms of reference, we hear that Tuli Shandu was commissioned, and everyone thinks, oh, who is Tuli Shandu and how is she relevant, and why would we read a report that is written by a Tuli Shandu we do not know? So that is why we need the person who commissioned the report, the president of South Africa, right? That adds credibility. Who was commissioned? Judge President Zondo. That adds credibility. And we need designations of those people. You cannot tell Tuli Shandu, a lecturer, to investigate something on administrative matters. Well, what would you know about administrative lecturers, right? Administrative issues. So we need names and designations to add credibility to the report. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much. All right, so you'll see that I was pointing out to you, highlighting to you the elements that Dr. Shandu was referring to here in the terms of reference. All right, that's the designation, the name. Pay attention to dates, all the details in the dates. Okay, so this is your terms of reference. And yes, important that report, that your title's written in capital letters, and then it's not numbered. It's really important that these little details all contribute to the marks that you can get. So when we go to procedures, numbering is important. All right, you can use this introductory sentence here as is in your answer in your investigative report. So 2.1, discussions were held. Now, when we're using the passive voice, when you use the passive voice, a sentence written in the passive voice does not mention or name or indicate or refer to who did the action. Okay, so in this example here, it's saying discussions were held, but it doesn't say who held the discussions. It's saying who the discussions were held with. So there's no reference to the investigator. There is no reference to Mr. Defana, the manager, who is doing the investigation. All right, so it's important that you write in the passive voice and in the past tense. So discussions were held, a poll was conducted, interviews were held, the chief financial officer was consulted. Now, it's no good just listing your procedures. You must say what that procedure and why the procedure was conducted. What was the purpose of the procedure? But at the same time, you're not going to include what the outcome of that procedure was. In other words, what the finding was. And I've seen in some of you who sent your reports to me for review before you submitted them. This is some of the mistakes that you were making. You were including the findings in your procedures. Okay, so in other words, what came out of the discussion? What was the result of the discussion? What was the finding? So something that's also really important is that the 2.1 procedure must be linked to 3.1 finding. Okay, and this is how you indicate structure and logical flow in your report. And this is why Dr. Shandu is saying it's one of the easiest documents to write, because if you follow the structure and all of the guidelines given to you in the study guide, then you will get marks for it. If you look at 2.2, it was a poll that was being conducted in the community radio station to establish the languages of preference for the envisaged project. So the poll, the results from the poll was statistics showed that the listeners rated. And do you see their statistics showing percentages? You could give a little bit more detail with the 5 languages if you want to, but you don't have to. So if we go to the conclusions, you'll see that the conclusions, if we go back here, I'm sorry, I just need to go back to my sharing. Tuli, I want to ask you specifically just to help students with the conclusions, because I find I'm not sure what I'm missing, but I'm sure you can add to my comments on conclusions.
Okay, all right. Do you want me to come in after you've presented, or would you like me to come in now?
No, you can come in now. It's fine. I'm just looking at the time. So.
All right. Lynn, I have the same question as you have. I'm asking myself, what are we missing? What is it that we are not explaining clearly for our students to grasp the difference between findings, conclusions, and recommendations? Because this is where students lose a lot of marks. You get findings in conclusions, and you get conclusions in recommendations. And okay, so maybe let's start with findings. Findings, this is where you tell us what you found from the procedures, and this is why we match findings to procedures. If you say a site visit was conducted, then in findings we need to see what you found from the site visit, right? You are not putting in your opinion, but you are saying what you saw, what you heard, or even tasted. If it's an investigation into a bakery and the quality of bread, you can say 10 loaves of bread were sampled, and then you tell us what you tasted. It tasted bitter, it tasted sour, or what the employees said. They expressed their unhappiness. So they expressed tells you that this is what you heard. These are the words they said. We are not happy. So they expressed their unhappiness, or the CEO confirmed, right? This is what you heard. But now we find students saying, for example, employees are unhappy. Now that is an opinion, that is a conclusion. To say employees are unhappy is a conclusion. Now compare these two, and I hope this example works. Compare these two. Sentence 1, the employees expressed their displeasure at the new company rules. Sentence 1. Sentence 2, all employees are unhappy that they have to work longer hours. Can you see the difference? One is they are unhappy, and the other one is they expressed their unhappiness. So they expressed their unhappiness is a finding. It's what you heard them say. But when we say employees are unhappy, now that is your conclusion. So let's come back to a conclusion. What is a conclusion? A conclusion is, one, a summary of the findings, okay? So that is why we cannot have 4 findings and 4 conclusions. It will not work, because you have to summarize your findings. But 2, your conclusions are a description of the state of affairs based on the findings, okay? So they said they were unhappy. They said they will all resign or stage a protest, and what else? And the CEO said there's no money for bonuses. Okay, so if you had to summarize that into a conclusion, you would say the employees were disgruntled about the working conditions. Can you see the difference? You are summarizing what they said, and you are describing the state of affairs. Okay, but then another thing about conclusions is you put in your own words. Okay, in other words, you analyze your findings and you put them, you put the state of affairs in your own words. I don't know, Lynn, how does that sound? Does it
No, that
sense?
sounds. Let's hear from the students.
Because I always feel it works better to use examples, because sometimes we explain, but then if we have examples, we have 2 sentences, one sentence, sentence A and sentence B, and say, which one of these sounds like a finding? Which one of these sounds like a conclusion? Then it works better when it's exemplified. Yeah, I'm even thinking now that maybe as part of my UNISA activities, maybe we should just this weekend, and I'll do that actually, I'll just put up a short exercise where I have a number of sentences, and then I'll ask students check or to let us know which one is a finding, which one is a conclusion. Because even though there are problems with procedures, the main problems with procedures related to tense, we have a big problem there. Related to tense and related to justification for action.
Yes.
So that is with procedures, but it's okay. With findings and findings, conclusions, and recommendations, it's all a mix.
I've also seen. I agree. I've seen that students confuse the findings with the conclusions, and it's difficult for them to separate the 3 sections out. But students are saying that they found this useful, and that they would come back to the video. And this is what's so cool about this interaction, is that they can come back to the video and listen to the explanation again, and look at the PowerPoint presentation, and go to the various documents. Madeline has commented and said what she likes about the investigative report is when you understand the format, it becomes really easy. The most difficult part, I would say, is getting started with the procedures. You're right, Madeline. It is the procedures that sometimes you're thinking, what would be the best way? You know, and the way to get started with your procedures is to look at that list in your study guide. Remember, this portfolio exam this is an open book exam. So if you go to page 48, okay, in your study guide, there's a list of procedures that you can make use of. But bear in mind that your procedure must be suitable for the issue. Okay, so his questionnaire is going to be the best way for me to gather information, to explore this issue at hand, to investigate this issue at hand. Is if I'm doing research, what's the nature of the research? What kind of research? You can't just say research was conducted in the community. Why? Who did you approach? What was the nature of the research? And so go to that list to help you to kickstart you with the procedures. Okay, so do you have any other questions? I see it's 12 o'clock and we had planned to finish at 12, but I'm quite happy to carry on. Tuli, if you need to leave because I know you may be busy, thank you very, very much for your input. We really, really appreciate your presence here today, taking 2 hours out of your time. It's your weekend, you know, you want to relax and rest, and getting ready for the pressures of next week. I just have a question, you know, about the accessing of the exam on Monday. So 15 minutes before the time, and that's 8:45 is when students should be logging into my UNISA and trying to download or access the paper.
Yeah, so I tell you, so I'm laughing about the weekend because I don't remember since the what do you call it, the online exam thing kicked in. We don't have weekends and we don't have evenings. We have meetings. Okay, so about Monday, you know, there are different portals and there are different rules for different types of exams. So for our particular exam, yes, at 8:45, the question paper will be available, and students can access the question paper in 2 ways. The first way is logging on to the first and easiest way is on your landing page on My UNISA. Before you even log in, before you even enter your student number, there is a window that has something about examination. I don't remember the actual word. I think it says something exams. So you click on that and it takes you to a portal for exams. And that is where you log in. You put in your student number and password, and then it will show you a list of the papers that you will be writing. And then you will click on 1504 and take it from there. It's user-friendly. We've tried it. That's option 1. Option 2 is you log into My UNISA the normal way with your student number and password, and then you go to My Admin. On My Admin, you see the drop-down menu, and then you click on Assessment. So the same way that you do with your assignments, then you click on 1504, and then you have your question paper there, and that is how you will submit your portfolio as well under assessment if you use option 2. But if you struggle in any way, we will be available on email during the day and at night. We've been given an instruction that even at night, someone needs to be available to respond to student queries. So if you struggle in any way, let us know immediately. Because if you don't, then we will not be able to assist in retrospect. In other words, you cannot say on the 15th, I've been struggling for 7 days. And you say you were not able to submit. Let us know immediately, because the university has made a concession for larger modules such as ours with 21,000 students, that if the submission portal on my UNISA is giving us hassles, they've given us plan C. There's a special link for larger modules if students are struggling with submitting on my UNISA, but we can only send a student that special link if the student sends us an email to say, I'm struggling, and they send us a screenshot, you know, just grab a screenshot of the error message or whatever it is, send it to us, then we can only send you that link. And please, students, that link is only for 1504. So you cannot send it to your friend who's doing FAC 101 to say, oh, this is the link I used, use this one. It's only specifically made for these larger modules, and it's linked to a specific module, so it cannot be shared.
Thank you so much for that input, Tuli. We really, really appreciate it. So students, you've heard from Dr. Shandu now for Monday. Oh, Tuli, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you, does the portal close at 9 o'clock on Monday for the downloading of the paper?
We were told, and remember that we only experience what we experience, you know, when the question paper is released. But for colleagues who have had exams, because this will be my first exam with all my 3-4 modules. So, but with colleagues who have tested the system, they say every time you log in, you do the same thing, the question paper will be there. It will not be closed for us with 7 days. It's closed for people with 2-hour exams. After 2 hours, it's closed. You cannot do anything about it. In other words, your link is deactivated. If you see now, if you log in, you check on 1504, it's deactivated. You cannot click on it. But on Monday, it will be activated, and you can click on it, and you can view the question paper, you can submit and everything. So it's kept active for the duration of
the portfolio exam, because that was one. So
if it's a 2-hour exam, if it's a 2-hour exam, if it's a 3-hour exam. But my personal suggestion is that at 9, download it to your local device, because we never know about load shedding, we never know about internet connection and everything. So download it to your local device so that you can access it offline anytime, and then you can log into my UNISA when you want to submit. And on that note, please just access your 30 gigabytes. It's free. Access it and using MTN, so that you have all that data for you to use. And number 3, I wanted to say something about exams. I've forgotten. I'll remember. Just make sure that you play around, and you mentioned this earlier, Lynn. Play around on the system. Make sure that you are familiar before Monday, and have backup. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Have backup devices. I think I mentioned it on the presentation. Have backup device. Borrow a laptop, borrow something. Just backup. You know, it's Murphy's law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong on the 15th. I can assure you. So get a backup device. Try to submit before the 15th, but don't rush to submit. Someone sent me an email to say, can I submit on the 8th? You can, but I would advise that you sleep on it. Write, finish, go to sleep, go eat, have coffee, have Coca-Cola, come back to it and revise it and edit it and so on. You can submit on the 8th, but I would rather that you check on it the following day, because like I said, there will be no extensions. There will be no emailing your portfolio to a lecturer. That is completely not allowed. So it's much stricter this time around, because this is an exam. In an exam situation, if you forget to bring a pen,
it's your fault. You cannot say, no, can someone give me a pen? No, it's all on you. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your input. We really appreciate it. There was somebody who has their hand up. It's somebody called Lawson. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to obtain clarification. So ENN1504, it closes on the 15th, but at 9 o'clock in the morning. Is that correct?
Yes. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. So, last opportunity for questions about your portfolio exam, and I hope that you have clarity, that you're feeling a bit calmer. I wanted to just also comment that yesterday with distance learning, not everyone lives in situations that are conducive to learning, studying. And when that becomes a challenge for you, or if that is a challenge for you, I'd like to encourage you rather, to negotiate, to interact with the people around you. Make a plan. If you're finding that it's difficult to work at home, ask if you work in an office environment. Ask your boss for permission to work at the office, bearing in mind the difficulties with COVID-19, okay? If that's not an option, speak to the local church in your area. Churches are open. Ask if you can sit in the church, in the actual church. Ask if there isn't a church close by, if there's a community hall of some kind that you can make use of, where it is more conducive for you to sit and do some work on your portfolio. Ask the local imam. Go to the mosque around the corner. It doesn't matter if you are not Muslim. We are all in this together, and I want to encourage you to do whatever you can for you to be able to complete your portfolio within the given time. So think about that. Make your arrangements over the next few days. Use your data that's been given to you. I know that some of you are still waiting for that data to be given, okay? Be patient. Remember, all the universities, every single student at UNISA was given a SIM card. So MTN has got to process all of those requests coming through thick and fast. So be a little bit patient. Thank you so much, Tuli, and thanks for all of your good wishes. And so, students, I wish you all of the very best. Remember that you have access to this recording. You have access to all of the resources on My UNISA. You have access to the resources on Teams. You make use of the podcasts. They're so valuable. You have the presentations. As Dr. Shandu said, download the information so that you have access to it and you don't use up your 10 gigs in the day time, okay? Only access My UNISA when you have to. She also gave very, very clear guidelines as to what to do should you not be able to get into the portal. Screenshots, I said this yesterday, email them immediately with a screen grab of the error message, and they will send you an alternative way of accessing the exam. The lecturers, as you have heard, want you to succeed. And I'm very grateful to Tuli for having taken her Saturday, her time to spend with us. So on that note, thank you so much. I will be checking into Teams for any extra questions. So if there was something that we didn't cover or there's something that's come up until tomorrow, I will be checking in intermittently into the Teams chat, and I'm very happy to interact with you there. So on that note, I say all of the very best. Tuli wishes you all the best for the exam week and for all of the remaining exams. And it was a pleasure to be of assistance and support and guidance. And thank you so much for all of your input. And all the best. So the session has now come to an end. And as I said earlier, please post any comments or questions, and then try to complete the feedback form that you will find underneath the files section. So all the very best, ladies and gentlemen. Take care and good afternoon. Goodbye.